Zane has saved $875 per quarter for the past 3 years in a savings account, earning 4.2% compounded quarterly. He plans to leave the accumulated savings for 7 years in the savings account at the same rate of interest. Draw a timeline. Let's review our question. Zane is saving $875 per quarter for the past 3 years in a savings account, earning 4.2% compounded quarterly. He's going to leave the money in the account for the next 7 years to let it accumulate at the same rate of interest. Now, let's draw a timeline. To start our timeline, obviously, we're just going to draw a line. Then we're going to do our 3 marks, which is at 3 years ago, today, and then 7 years later. After that, we are placing dots along our timeline between the 3-year ago mark and today to represent the amount of payments that were made in that 3-year span, which was quarterly for 3 years. At the first quarter mark, she writes $875, which represents the first payment made of $875. Now that we know present value is 0 because we had started making payments after 3 years ago, we are solving for a future value, which we are going to label future value 1. We will then be using this as our present value 2 to solve for our future value 2 for our final result. To solve for how many payments Zane will be making in the 3-year span, we are going to multiply the amount of years to the amount of payments he will be making yearly, which equals 12 payments. To solve for the second one, all you need to do is multiply the 7 years to the amount of times the interest is compounded, which is quarterly, which equals 28 earnings of interest. On the side, she is writing the values of 3 values that are the same in both questions. IY, which stands for annual rate of interest, which is 4.2, CY, which is compounded yearly, which is 4, and PY, which is payments per year, which is also 4. Next, we write down all of our factors to punch into our calculator to solve for the answer for part 1 of this question. As we said before, we need to solve for future value 1, which is how much there would be in his savings account today from 3 years ago when he started. We know PV stands for present value, and we know that that is 0. Then we put down the values for IY, CY, and PY like we stated earlier. Then we put down PMT, which stands for payment, and our payment is $875. Lastly, write down the value for N, which stands for number of payments, that we discovered earlier for section 1, which is 12. When putting all of your values into your BAC2 calculator, ensure that your PMT value is a negative. Therefore, the FV value that Zane now has in his account should be $11,128.11. For part 2 of the problem, we are once again solving for FV. We will be using the FV value we just solved for as our new present value, which is our PV2 value for our second part of the question. Once again, the next 3 values are IY, CY, and PY values, which are the same between both parts. Next, we write down our PMT value, which is 0, because we are just letting the interest accumulate these next 7 years, and we are not putting any payments in the account. Lastly, we write down our last N value, which was 28 times that the interest was compounded in the 7-year span. Once all of those values are put into your calculator, along with a negative PV value, you should get your final answer for FV2, which is $14,908.65. To answer question number 1, Your final value for FV2 will be the amount of money in his savings account. So Zane will have $14,908.65 in his savings at the end of the 7 years from now. Question 2 asks, how much money did Zane contribute? Seeing as Zane didn't contribute any money from 7 years from now, the only time he had contributed money was 3 years ago to today. 3 years ago to today, he was paying $875 4 times a year, which would be 12. 875 times 12 equals $10,500. That is how much Zane contributed. Lastly, we are asked how much out of Zane's money in his savings account is interest. This question is quite simple. You simply subtract the amount of money that Zane has put in the account from the total amount in the account now. So $14,908.65 minus $10,500 leaves you with $4,408.65 in interest.